We're reading today from Luke chapter 18, verses 1 to 8. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, "In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared about men. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, 'Grant me justice against my adversary.' For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, 'Even though I don't fear God or care about men, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually wear me out with her coming.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones, who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?'"
Hello, my name is Michael. It's very nice that you are able to join us. In today's talk, I want to focus on the topic of waiting. I'm sure you are both familiar with the concept and the act of waiting. According to one study, we typically spend 42 minutes a day waiting for things like friends or public transport. Another study shows that we spend on average 2 years of our lives waiting in line. Sometimes we wait for things for a short period of time, like the queue in the supermarket, but in other times we wait for things that take a long time to come true. Perhaps not many people share your belief that this thing is coming. Or perhaps when you look around, you find the proof to show that what you're waiting for is on its way. This is the case for waiting for the coming of the kingdom of God. In Luke 17, the Pharisees asked Jesus this question, when the kingdom of God would come. Why was Jesus asked this question? In the Old Testament, God repeatedly promised that he will save his people and rules with perfect justice with the coming of the Messiah. In fact, the coming of kingdom of God is the center of God's plan. His mighty arms will stretch to the ends of the earth, and he will bring justice to restore everything. Those who trust Jesus will see the kingdom of God. But when will the kingdom of God come? Jesus gave a surprising answer. He said that it is not like the coming of human kingdoms, that you would just say, look, here it is. Instead, there are two realities that are both true at the same time. On the one hand, he said the kingdom of God is among you, meaning Jesus himself brings about the kingdom of God. Remember, he was speaking to people who asked the question. In fact, he would go on to suffer on the cross to finish the work, to bring about the kingdom of God. But on the other hand, this kingdom of God is not fully revealed yet. When Jesus returned to bring the full revelation of the kingdom, he will come like a lightning, or like Noah's flood, where nobody would expect it, and it happens while everyone is carrying on with their business. Jesus' judgment will come so quickly that two people are together 1 second. The next second, one person is taken away and the other person is left behind. It's so easy for us to forget about this coming of kingdom of God. We need to keep trusting as we wait. I made the point as we start that waiting is a universal human experience. So what do you think we should do to wait well? I think my self-consciousness often tells me that I shouldn't make a big deal of it. I should wait patiently and quietly. But of course, we know the worst outcome of waiting is not everyone knows that you're waiting, but rather that you give up waiting altogether. You stop believing what you're waiting for is true, or rather you don't care whether it's true anymore because you don't think it's worth it. That's why Jesus used a parable to teach us not to give up. In Luke 18, verse 1, Jesus outlines this part of his teaching. It's about how not to give up, and the secret lies in always praying. There are two characters in the parable, a widow who was wronged by her adversaries, and a judge. In Jesus' time, being a widow means being totally helpless. Her husband were not there to speak up for her. Her only hope of justice is through the local judge, who is supposed to bring justice to the land, but we learn that he's not a very good one. He didn't fear God, and he didn't care about man. The woman was waiting for justice. What did she do? Was she worried about how people would see her, or was she annoy the judge? Was she worried about embarrassing herself? No, she kept going to the judge with her plea. And even the judge refused for some time. He finally granted her request because he didn't want her to wear him out. What's Jesus' point here? In verse 6 to 8, Jesus is highlighting two ways that God is better than this judge. First, the judge didn't fear God, but the passage shows us that the fear of God would draw someone to listen to others' cry of mercy. Therefore, if a judge who has no fear of God can be swayed by persistent petitions, how much more certain we can be that God will help those who cry to him day and night. Second, the judge didn't care about people, but God does. If a judge who doesn't care about people can grant justice, how much more would a caring God bring justice to his people? And how do God's people cry out to God? By praying. Sometimes we have some not very helpful understanding about prayers. We may think that it is a bit superstitious, or sometimes people think that it's about hearing the voice of God. But prayer is simply us speaking to God. But as we have seen, the coming of God's kingdom is the center of God's plan. It makes perfect sense to focus that in our prayers. That's why Jesus taught the disciples in the Lord's Prayers to pray with these words: Our Father in heaven, your kingdom come, your will be done. The challenge to all of us is then to trust this coming kingdom and to keep trusting. That's why the parable concludes with Jesus' rhetorical question: However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? What's in question is not whether God is a good judge, but what rather will we keep trusting that this is true? And the way we can do this is by keep crying out to God through prayers. This is the only way we can be in the kingdom of God. If you are investigating Christianity today, how do you make of this coming kingdom of God? Do you find yourself longing for this perfect justice in every corner of the world, but not sure whether you will stand blameless before this perfect judge? Then trust in King Jesus, who took your sin in his death and welcomes you to his Father's kingdom. Maybe you are a Christian or someone deciding whether to become a Christian. You may find it difficult to keep trusting in God's promises in your head and wait for the return of Jesus, especially when life is hard. But remember, you have a relationship with God as his sons and daughters when you put your trust in Jesus. You can cry to God, your Father, not to remind him to be a good judge, but to remind ourselves that God is the good judge, the King of the universe. It is by obeying Jesus' command to always pray that our faith will not grow cold, that we can wait with certainty in life's hardship that Jesus will return and the kingdom of God will be fully revealed. Maybe as you're listening, you find yourself not praying much recently. Now is the time to start praying day and night. Your discussion leaders can give you some practical help. Do you want to wait well for the only thing that matters? Do you want to be welcomed into this coming kingdom of God on that day? Then keep praying and don't lose heart.